Hey, good morning. So, welcome to the first edition of Real Retirement Talk with Popsy Guy live. I'm not 100% sure that this is all working, but you'll let me know if you chime in. Let's see, all kinds of things that I'm trying to figure out here. Let's see what this button does. Huh, huh, interesting. We're going to play around a little bit here. Okay, I see how that works. Or I'm not sure my microphone is working. If anybody wants to chime in and let me know, that'd be awesome. So what we're going to do today is kind of give you a sense of who we are, what we do at Real Retirement Talk with Poxy Guy. I'm going to lose the hat. Don't need it. Even though the sun is bright, you want to see my beautiful hair, don't you? I know. So let's start out by just sharing with you some of the things that I'd like to talk about. And I want to hear from you. And in fact, you've got some questions about retirement talk. What gives me the right to even talk about that? Well, if you've seen some of my videos, you know that I have well over 3 decades of experience in the financial services business, most of that as a retail advisor. I owned my own firm for a number of years and worked with other firms on and off. And I saw a lot of stuff. I really did. I saw some things that actually curl your hair. But anyway, just want to make sure that you got a little bit of a background on what it is that I do and how I do it, and then get your feedback as well. If you're watching, just go ahead and type in where you're watching from and some of the questions that I get about retirement. First of all, let's pull the curtain back a little bit and talk a little bit more about what brings me to YouTube. So I'm 64 years old and just turned 64. So I'm in my 65th year. And I retired at 62. And we'll talk about the circumstances surrounding that. But there's been a lot of people who have followed the same trajectory that I have. So at 62, I made the decision to take early Social Security. And we can talk about how that all went down. As a matter of fact, I have discussed it on some of my videos. But here's the deal. At 65, my wife and I will be on Medicare, which means that our Social Security will be dinged the Medicare Part B premium, which will be well over $200 a piece. Then we'll have to enroll in a Medicare supplement plan, maybe even pick up prescription drug coverage. Hopefully not yet, but Part D. So all that adds up. And so the reason I tell you that is because I decided about a year ago to do a YouTube channel. And I did it as more of a legacy play for my grandkids. But as the months and the year has kind of rolled on, I've decided that I want to turn it into an income producing business. Now, does that mean getting income from AdSense? Probably not. Only because the AdSense requirements have changed. If you're a YouTuber, you know that the change just occurred about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it is now 8,000 watch hours in a 365-day period instead of 4,000. And I'm neither 4,000 or 8,000. But anyway, I tell you that because years ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago, I saw some people on YouTube about my age doing this YouTube thing. And I thought, well, I could do that. And so here we are. And the evolution of my channel is continual. I'm continually tweaking it and tinkering with it. And I found that they call it, if you're a YouTuber, you can understand this, they call it a niche, right? Where you're really good at, if that's such a thing. I don't know if I'm really good at it, but I love talking about finance and economics for people in our age group. Because what I've found is that most people will spend their whole working lives planning for the day that they retire. And all of a sudden, that day comes, whether it's forced on them or they chose it themselves, and it's like, now what do I do? But then there's another group of people who have planned meticulously. And if you saw my last video, they've got spreadsheets and they've got numbers, and that type of person feels good about ending work on a certain day because there's a certain amount of money. And in my years as an advisor, I saw that so many times work out well, but the times that it didn't work out well, it was kind of heartbreaking. And those are the things I want to talk about on my channel. So those are the questions I'll be asking you, right? And now I have to kind of put on my glasses because I can't see what's going on. Oh, good. This is so cool. Thank you very much, guys, for chatting. I appreciate it. It means my audio is working. Hey, Phil, how are you, buddy? You're one of the reasons that I'm doing this. Chandler's Retirement Life. Then thank you for your support. You guys are awesome. We owe a lot to Mike Bear, Mike's school community, as Phil is, very engaging and very supportive for dweebs like me to get on YouTube and just start talking about stuff. So thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. I mentioned to another friend of mine, I said, I'm planning to do my first live because everybody says that's what you need to start doing. And my biggest fear, and tell me if this is something that happens to you, is that I'd be basically talking to an empty room. But you guys have shown that that's not true, and I really appreciate that. So here are the things in this inaugural edition that I kind of wanted to get your take on. And it's real retirement talk. And it's not all just economics and finance. I don't manage money anymore. I am not an advisor anymore. For years, I held my designations and licenses, but all of that is in the past. I just want to talk about the issues that we all face in getting ready to retire and then being retired. And I know some of the folks that are involved right now in the chat who are still working. Right, Bill? We talk about if you're still employed but of retirement age, are you technically retired? That's one of the questions I want to ask you. What do you think about that? If you're still doing part-time work or even, I don't know, full-time work, but you're of that retirement age, and I consider that north of 62. What do you tell people when they say, oh, are you retired? I'll share with you what I say, but I want to see if anybody, let's see. Okay. So here's my thought process. And I could be way off base. If you're of retirement age, past 62, and you're still working, whether it's a full-time or part-time job, you can answer any way you want. If you want to say, I'm officially retired, but I still work part-time, absolutely. Or you can say, no, I haven't retired yet because I'm still working. And in my mind, people ask that question because they want to see whether or not, how do I say this? They're on the right track. What I've found over the years of chatting with people is that they want to be perceived as doing the right thing, being on the right track. If you're in our age group, then you know that we were brought up in an age where you get your education, you work, you retire. And you should have plenty of money to live on. Social Security income should be a supplement. It shouldn't be the base of your income. You should have a good sized portfolio, maybe a pension from the company that you used to work with, health insurance provided, and you sail off into that retirement with oodles of money. The reality is that is not the reality for a lot of people. As a matter of fact, I've been listening to some podcasts that speak about some of the same things that we're talking about. And statistically, it's probably in the 60% plus of people in my age group who are not looking at oodles of money in retirement. So that's one of the first things I want to talk about. Matter of fact, I wrote down some questions. First one is, I want to know what you think about people. There seems to be some conversation about people who are fearing running out of money in retirement. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that. I've got some of my own thoughts on that, but if you've either ever felt that way or have talked to people that have that fear, what do you think is driving that? Right? Is it truly that there won't be any money, or is it that cost of living, inflation won't keep up with their portfolio? I don't know if you've got some comments on that. I would, yeah, traditionally, let's see. Yeah, Phil said traditionally you don't work in retirement. Um, it is interesting. That is the tradition, right? You don't work. It's retirement. It's a date that you've decided that you're not going to work anymore. And what determines that? And going back to the question about, the fear of running out of money, I think you and I both know there are people that have lots more money than the average bear, but they still have a fear of running out of money. And then there are people that literally, this is going to sound kind of crude, but you get where I'm coming from. My mom used to say, they don't have a pot to pee in or a window to throw it out of, but yet they don't have any fear of running out of money. So, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like that dichotomy, that dynamic where I'm not sure whether or not it's a reality, but up here, it's a reality for people. So what are your thoughts on that? Let me check to see if we've got any. I think what happens can result from running out of money is terrible. Yeah, Phil, you're absolutely right. Yep. But let me ask you the same question in a different way. Will people ever in this country, right, in the United States of America in the 21st century, will people ever actually run out of money? I don't think in the literal sense that that's true, right? Because if somebody qualifies for Social Security, whether it's Social Security disability income, supplemental income, straight retirement benefits, those benefits, regardless of the number, the dollar number, are designed to last your lifetime. So then what happens is that it's the adjustment of the expenses to the amount of income. Does that make sense? Right? So if somebody's afraid of running, and this is my take, because I'm not afraid of running out of money. I'll do whatever I have to do. I think the YouTube opportunity for us in this age group is tremendous. Whether or not it works, only God knows. But I think that the reality is that most of us have to adjust our expenses to our income. And if we do that, that may require us to live in a way that we didn't really think we would ever have to live, right? I mean, there are plenty of people, and I know lots of them, that have they look in the mirror and say, I failed in retirement because I don't own my own home, or I failed in retirement because I don't have a new car. Others just say, I failed in retirement because I have to live in this community that I never thought I'd live in. But they haven't run out of money. But, I'm starting to sound kind of philosophical, but it's true. So we're blessed in that regard, is that I believe, and this is my opinion, that the fear of running out of money is not really a reality, right? We live in the best country in the world where we'll have some money coming in, and there's support systems that are designed, both private and public, so that if somebody is without, maybe they're either not looking for the resources that they need, or it's a decision, right? I mean, I don't know. But anyway, that is my whole kind of thought process on this conversation about people who have a fear of running out of money. And as I mentioned, I saw a couple of YouTube videos and this conversation was being had, and I read the comments, And they ranged from, yeah, I don't have any money. I mean, I've got what I need. So I'm doing okay, to I've got more money than I know what to do with, but I still fear running out of money. And that one kind of sounds funny, but it's also a psychological thing, right? Maybe that person was brought up in an era of poverty or lacking of the basics. And they worked hard and did what they were told to do. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, get it done. And they were diligent enough to amass a certain amount of money and assets. But whatever they were brought up in, that environment, still hasn't left. I think as the older boomers start to die off and us younger boomers start to, and the Gen X start to come up in behind, or the Gen Z, what am I looking at? Gen Z? Gen Z. Start to come in behind the younger boomers, that'll change, because that deprivation, that almost Great Depression mentality, will start to be a memory. It won't be the reality for a lot of people. That was drilled into their heads like the older boomers. So anyway, those are some of my thoughts on that. Yeah, there is a, thanks, Chandler. That is so true. There is a psychological thing to it. So at least you verified what I was thinking. Sometimes I just think out loud, and I probably shouldn't do that. Yeah, and the other thing Chandler had mentioned is that some folks do part-time work for the social interaction. Is that part of the next question? Yeah. Okay. That's the situation that I find myself in, and other people that I'm close to. Part-time work is obviously, the income is nice because it allows my wife and I to do some things, go out to dinner or spend some money on grandkids. But it's also just because I don't know if you're like me, I just can't see myself sitting around. I mean, I play golf, but I haven't played in a year because bad hip, bad shoulder, and too damn expensive. I mean, I love the game. I played for years and I was never any good at it. But the times that I did play, it was with a group of guys and would have a blast. So it was the social interaction. But going back to that, even if I was healthy and had oodles of money, I don't think I'd want to play golf 18 holes a day every single day. I've seen it. I mean, it's okay. But I never pictured myself as somebody in retirement that would, basically just stop doing things. And my guess is that most of you guys are the same way. You just are not interested in unplugging, because first of all, number one, you wouldn't be here, right? This is you're taking time out of your day to spend time with Popsy Guy and talk about these things. So you've already established the fact that you want to do things. And I think that's the common denominator between us, the guys that are in the chat, the people that are in the chat, myself, is we're at that stage in life where, yeah, we've worked hard, we've done well, and now is not the time to sit back on our laurels. Which brings me to another point, which is what, and this really is kind of the crux of what I wanted to talk about, is what happens when we retire and our health goes south. I mean, I know I don't know if it's data driven. I really haven't looked into it, but it's colloquial, right? It's almost a thing that we believe because we've heard it so many times. The year after you retire, you're probably going to get sick and die. Or I know somebody who retired, then a year later they died. It's almost like, well, if that's the case, why do we even bother retiring? If that's the case and you've heard it all your life that, it's set up so that after you retire, you're going to get sick and die, why bother retiring? But it's true, right? We work from age 18 to 65. And if we're following the traditional path that all of us were kind of brought up on, that's the day we stop working. That's the day we claim, Medicare and Social Security and start drawing on a retirement portfolio. And you know what? If God blesses you with a number of years of good health, here's my recommendation: spend the money. I mean, you've heard what I've also heard, which is that there are go-go years, right? The go-go years after retiring last generally 5 to 7 years. That's a study that's been done by a number of life insurance companies. Allianz is one, Northwestern Mutual, I think I've seen that study. And then after that time, because we're like automobiles, we're only designed to go so far before we have to replace our parts. We start losing the ability to do the things that we wanted to do when we were working, but we couldn't do because we were working, right? It's the old saying. It says that my get up and go finally got up and went. I know, Phil. I know. Phil says, I always said I didn't plan to ever retire. Careful what you say. That is so true, huh? Oh my gosh. I like Chandler's comment right here. It says, number one, he's glad that he has a pension, which is awesome. And so as long as he stays alive, he'll have money. That is one of the deepest comments that I have heard. As long as I stay alive, I'll have money. So what's the opposite of that, Chandler? When you're dead, you won't have any money? Yeah, because you won't need any money. So I like that. I like that double entendre there. But yeah, pensions and Social Security are single life annuities. And I don't want to go into the technical part, but sometimes I do. So stop me if this bores you. But a single life annuity is a pension where you've taken maybe the A option, which says it will stop the day you die. And that A option provides you more money, right? Because once you die, there's no more money. If you take another option, whether it's a B or a 50-50 or however else you do it, the money is spread out over more than one lifetime. Social Security doesn't work that way. As Chandler said, as long as he's alive, he has money. Social Security stops coming to you the day you die. Matter of fact, if you're in the middle of the month, because this happened to both my parents, Social Security will turn around and say, hey, we paid you. Now you're going to pay us back. And they will go into the bank account and get it. Tell me if that's happened to you. So yeah, having enough money until you die is the goal. And that's what I'm trying to say is if you've got a pension, that's another layer of security. If you're on Social Security, there's a second layer of Social Security. And if you got a retirement income portfolio that you're managing, there's an additional layer of security. And that's the one, excuse me, that third one, portfolio. We can spend some time talking about that, but that's the one that most people focus on. Is trying to get as much money from that portfolio, get great returns. Everybody wants they want safe investments with high returns. I'm here to tell you now, it doesn't work that way. What else we got going on? Phil says, I think there are studies that show having a health crisis can break you financially unless you have ultra wealth. Kind of a depressing reality. And then Chandler backs that up with never go to the doctor. Dude, guys, those are awesome comments because those are things that people are struggling with. Not calling out Phil. You can watch Phil's What's Up Boomers YouTube channel, which I highly recommend you do. But he details that he had a major heart event, a widowmaker. And I've only known two other people. I didn't know Tim Russert. If you know Tim Russert from the news networks, he died of a widowmaker. This Phil did not. And I had another good friend named Phil, coincidentally, and you guys remind me so much of each other, who survived a widowmaker as well. And he was in retirement when it happened. So yeah, that health crisis can derail your retirement. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And it could force people to go back into work just to try to make up. And, that's a personal decision. But Chandler says, don't go to the doctor. Between you and I, yeah, right. Because the way that our system is set up right now, and this is just me, and if I'm offending you, then I'm sorry. The system, the way it's set up right now, is to make money every time you show up. All right. We've all been through it before, where a scheduled appointment will be just so they can, confirm what you've already been doing and collect the copayment or what have you. And send you off with a new prescription. And, that just seems to be the cycle. And I'll share with you personally right now, I'm going through that, right? I'm being treated for high blood pressure. Just quick, I started realizing that I had high blood pressure when I was 33 years old. So that's 31 years ago. The only reason I knew it is because I was applying for life insurance for myself, and it was 140/90. And they said, "Ooh, that's kind of high." And then I realized, well, my wife and I had 2 kids under the age of 5. I had started my own business with, with no income, and my wife was a stay-at-home mom. So yeah, no wonder my blood pressure is high. But it's been that way ever since, and it's been controlled. But now every time I go and have it checked, they're like, "Oh, we need to move you to this medication, that medication." Just leave me alone. That's why I don't want to go to the doctor. Hey, Thinking Algonquin says, "Hey, good morning." Good morning. I have a federal pension, took Social Security at 62 and a half, and I'm letting my retirement portfolio grow. I'm actually spending less time in retirement than I had planned for. And then she follows it up and says, with health issues, it puts retirement in perspective, making the most of each day. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think if you get into a conversation with the other folks that are in the chat, they're probably going to say the same thing. Matter of fact, I know they are. Because a health crisis puts everything into perspective. And it really doesn't even have to be your health crisis, right? It could be a health crisis for an aging parent. There are YouTubers who are older than I am who are taking care of their aging parents. I did that for a number of years with my dad. And so it's not necessarily a health crisis that impacts you. It could impact a loved one. And most likely it's going to be a parent, or it could be a child, right? I mean, it doesn't matter. The impact, financial impact of that health crisis will hurt you one way or another, whether it's emotionally or financially. So yeah, Algonquin, I understand that. Boy. Spending less in retirement is key, Chandler's Retirement says. So you know what? That goes back to, that's a very good point. And it's kind of an anathema to how we were brought up, right? And I can speak for myself, having been on the side of the table giving retirement advice. Pardon me. Most people enter retirement thinking it's time to spend money. It's time to take care of myself. It's time to travel. It's time to do the things I didn't have a chance to do when I was working. And that's true. And that goes back to that concept of go-go years that I was mentioning. But then I think all of us, as we start to get a little bit more mature in our retirement lifestyle, realize we don't need as much as we thought we did, right? Inflation being one thing, but I've seen it happen to people in my demographic, right? I am not rich. I am not poor. I'm okay. That we just stopped wanting all this stuff that we thought we wanted. Matter of fact, one of my biggest bugaboos, and you may have seen that video, is people who spend $85,000, $90,000 on a new truck. Oh, dude, that just drives me nuts. But that's for them. That's what they want. They have the money, they can do it. But my desire to have a big F-150 or Dodge Ram or something, it gets kind of dampened down in the 21st century. Not because I don't think the truck looks cool and I'd look cool driving it. Because, man, I don't want to drive a computer on wheels that's going to cost me a ton of money in insurance. Even if I pay cash for it, still have to pay the insurance. And then the maintenance is not as simple as just doing oil changes and tire rotations anymore. Because if one computer sensor goes bad in one of those $90,000 trucks, the fix could be $3,000 or $4,000 as they go in and pull out the whole dash, the whole system, to try to find that one sensor. And I'm assuming that it's not warranted and you're not going to get coverage that way. And so that's my biggest complaint about these new vehicles, whether it's a big truck or what have you, is they're just computers on wheels. And I digress, but I will say this last thing. I don't want my car tracking my every move. Let's see. Spending less is key, and I agree with both. Spend less before retiring, build your portfolio. Spending less after retiring, but I really struggle with switching from saving to spending. That's I think if you were here just a few minutes ago when I was talking about the mindset that some of us have because of the generation that we're in, we were told because our parents, and most specifically their parents that overlap, they grew up in the Depression. They knew what it was like to not have any money. I don't think I've ever, and I could challenge you maybe, and you don't have to get personal, but I don't ever remember a time where I had no money. I remember a time, as I had mentioned, when I was starting my business back in the early 90s from scratch, that things were really tight. Kids like to eat, mortgages like to get paid, all these things, but there wasn't enough revenue coming in to manage all those expenses. But that doesn't mean we didn't eat. The mortgage didn't get paid. There was money, right? So as I get older, as I mentioned, and maybe you're the same way, I just don't need as much. So I have no problem saving. I think it's just one of those things where it feels good to see a number go up rather than number go down. And that's more than just retirement portfolios. All right, let's see. Chandler, I don't save money in retirement. I have no money to save. Phil says, imagine me buying a new $100,000 truck and then documenting my financial demise. Dude, you wouldn't even have the opportunity to document it because your phone would be repossessed, your house would be repossessed, everything would be repossessed. So, but I get it. Yeah, if you haven't, I mentioned Phil's channel, but he's got a Maserati. He made a mistake, and he freely admits that he blew a lot of money spending money on a Maserati. I think you should check out Phil's video on that. You'll enjoy that. Oh, thriving Algonquin. So yeah, actually saving money in retirement. I want to talk about that in a second. Yeah, she says I'm also addicted to that, watching the money grow. Yeah, I dare them to take my phone. They don't have to take your phone, Phil. They don't have to physically come in and grab your phone. This is not 1984. They just shut it off. And it becomes, just a dumb device that doesn't do anything. So, but anyway, getting back to Algonquin's point about saving money. And it doesn't have to be a big number. As I said just a minute ago, it just has to be a number that goes up, not a number that goes down. There's a feeling of satisfaction and, not having to borrow against savings to pay for something in the future. There's a theory that I hold on to, and I hold on to it really, really tight now that I'm getting older. If you don't have the money, you can't afford it. Right? I mean, try teaching that to the Gen Xers or the Gen Zers. I get those confused. Gen Zers. And then the Alpha. My grandkids are going to be in that Alpha generation. And, I'm not going to speak about them because they're not old enough to spend money now. But they will be brought up in a society where you can go online and buy a burrito, have it delivered, and pay for it in 3 easy installments. I did a video on that about Klarna and the other mobile apps where you're basically financing anything you want in life. It goes against what I think is, sound financial advice. Simply is if you don't have the cash, and I mean, you can't write a check, put it on a debit card, or hand over pictures of dead presidents. You can't do that. You shouldn't buy it. Right. And that I guess will then tie into our wants for these things that are kind of out of our budget. We don't desire them as much if we follow that philosophy. So, Chandler, good man. I bought and paid for my truck before I retired, but it's turning old. 2020. Now what? Well, let's get into that. I did this. Well, see, I paid for a car. I financed it. I'm going to tell you the story because people think I'm nuts. So it was 2019. And my wife and I lived in a little town in Southwest Virginia. Really loved it. We could afford it. We were both working from home. It was a good year. So I was standing out on my deck and I pulled out my iPhone, and we needed a car because we were planning on moving back up to New England for other reasons. But we needed a more reliable car than the one I had. So I went on Carvana, right? Um, and purchased a 2016 Nissan Murano. And this was in 2019. And when I checked the Carfax, this car had 6,800 miles on it. It had been repossessed in Florida and then bounced around to different dealerships, and nobody could sell it. So Carvana bought it, and I bought it from Carvana. That was in 2019 with 6,800 miles on it. Here we are in 2026. I own that car. It's 10 years old, and I have 182,000 miles on it. That's where I think most of us shouldn't have to worry about going into the dealership and buying a new car. I don't advise that. I think you know my theory on that. But Chandler, if you can take care of that car, it's only 6 years old. If you're not putting 100,000 miles a year on it, or 50,000, or whatever crazy number, a car should. If you're taking care of it, it should last. That's all I'm saying. All right, let's go. If you think that's old, what's that make in 1958? Good one, Phil. So Thriving Algonquin says, I'm putting the money that I'm saving into CD to put towards a vehicle when I need it. Right now I have a Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk with 70,000 miles. So yes, you said you figure you still have a few years? Yes, just take care of it. Even though it's a Jeep used to be a little better than it is now, but if you're taking care of it, I think you'll be fine. 70,000 miles is, we used to say, the engine's not even broken in yet. Let's see. Chris Represent said they will learn once more that half their paycheck goes to things they really bought and no longer even remember. I did that years ago. Clothes, dinners out, then payday, and no money left. Amen, Chris. That's the issue, right? It's because we're, again, I'll go back to it. We live in one of the greatest countries in the world, if not the greatest, and whatever we want, it's right there at our fingertips, whether it's an experience, a vacation, a dinner out, a new house, a new car. For most of America, those things are within reach. And we just want to continue to have that experience. Then you look back and you go, well, what did I get for it? Not much, not much. Isn't that, I'd be interested, Chris. I don't know how old you are. You don't have to tell me, but has your philosophy changed about money over the years? Do you find it as a means to the end and not the end itself? I'd be interested in hearing that. Okay, that's me knocking on wood. Okay, I love Jeeps. I know, I love Jeeps too. I think I'm not going to say every guy, but most guys want to get a Jeep Cherokee, or not the Cherokee, Wranglers. My buddy, when we were growing up in high school, had a Wrangler CJ5. It was 1982. In 81, his dad bought it for him. It had Levi's seats, literally denim Levi's seats. 5-speed, 4-wheel drive. That thing was the boss. I see that same type of Jeep on the road around here, and I'm like, I would love that. But 14. I think somebody was selling one just like that, and it was revamped for like $14,000. No, thank you. Didn't even go for that much when it was new. Okay. Yes. Yeah, Chris. It's crazy that there are ads for getting your paycheck up to 3 days early. Let's talk about that. One last. Thriving Algonquin said, I had a Wrangler and I hated parting with it. Yes. I wish you didn't. And I know there's somebody else in this chat, unless he's left, that had a Wrangler too. Let's see if he chimes in. Anyway, so getting back to what Chris said that it's crazy. And that goes back to the reason that banks and payroll companies and other firms, financial firms, offer to give you your money 3 days in advance, because there's a fee involved, right? I mean, it wasn't that long ago, maybe 10, 15 years or so ago, that the TurboTaxes of the world and H&R Blocks would allow you to get your tax refund early. Well, because there's a fee involved, right? So for them to lend you that money, because that's all they're doing is lending you money 3 days early, you pay a fee, right? And then that check is deposited and then they get paid. It's crazy because of the convenience. And, I mentioned Klarna, which is one of the, I think, most notorious buy now, pay later deals. And the Gen Zers have no problem buying things they don't need and putting it on a 3 or 4 month installment plan. Here's the challenge. They do it so often, and I've seen this because I work with a whole bunch of Gen Zs. They do it so often they lose track of what they've bought, right? And then all of a sudden, if they miss one payment, that 0% interest for the first 3 or 4 months goes to 22, 25%. And now they're in a world of hurt. Nobody's ever taught them that. I actually did a video on financial strategies or wisdom for Gen Zs, and that was one of the things I talked about. So if you've got people in that age group in your life, teach them not to fall for all of the, I don't want to call them scams because they're not scams, all of the tricks that big financial companies want to use to get them to pay money that they shouldn't be paying in fees and interest. If that makes sense. Take your glasses off, Phil says, and it's in a boomer habit. The minerals are roasting. Phil, if I take my glasses off, I'm not going to see what I'm reading, okay? So there. I don't know. Do you have glasses? I don't know if you do. Let's see. Anyway, I didn't want to spend a whole day, but I love the interaction. Thank you very much. I'm going to go back to the point where I thought if I do this live stream, nobody's ever going to show up, but you all did, and you're making it fun. There's one last question I want to ask and get your opinion. You guys are having an awesome time just talking amongst yourselves, which I love. The last question I want to ask you is specific to our upbringing, right? About retirement. We were told by maybe our parents, our employers, what have you, that retirement looks a certain way. So the question is, what are some of the lies or the myths that you bought into that you now are seeing that you're getting ready to retire or have already retired? What are some of the things that you were told in your working years that just didn't come true? I'll start. Is when you retire at 65, because that was the number, you will have the ability to do anything you want because you'll have more money than you'll need, which sounded good, right? And then you ask the question, well, how do I get more money than I need, let's say 35, 40 years down the road? Oh, you just make sure you put $200 a month or $100 a week into an account and never touch it. Oh man, that sounds so simple. Then life happens, right? Tell me if this didn't happen to you, that you were putting money into an account when you were employed, and whether it's a savings account or a company retirement plan, what have you, and then life happened. And you either couldn't continue to put that money in the account, or you needed to take some money out of that account and promised yourself, oh, I will make sure that I get back on track. It happened to me. I can't imagine I'm the only one it's ever happened to. And this is why I'm passionate. This is going to be a commercial. So it's not a paid promotion. It's just a commercial for what I'm trying to do with what I'm attempting to do. And I think I'll do it successfully with my business, which is Real Retirement Talk, is to create an atmosphere where we help educate and equip people for smarter financial decisions. And this is kind of the conversation that we're all having right now. We'll continue to make smart financial decisions because we've got experience and wisdom in our corner, but it's also incumbent upon us to pass that on to the next generation and the generation behind that. And that's my goal, is to continue to help people make smarter financial decisions by just bringing up some of the things that they need to pay attention to. Phil's telling me to keep my glasses on. No, I should have my hat on, but I took it off. So Thriving Algonquin says, I always thought the employer would take care of the employee's retirement plans. Never imagined that I would have to become familiar with investing. Excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. I think I'm safe to say that I think we're all kind of in the same age bracket. And I can tell you right now, I graduated college right in the middle of a high inflationary period, high unemployment period. And at the same time, 401ks were just rolling out to a lot of employers because most employers were using pensions. So yes, they were responsible for your retirement when they were using what's called a defined benefit pension plan. But then it turned and Congress said, well, wait a minute, why don't we give consumers the option of managing their own retirement? And the 401k, it's a section in the Internal Revenue Code, allowed employers and employees to jointly partner in the retirement planning aspect. And what it did, if you didn't already know this, is it took the pressure off of companies funding pension plans and put it on the employee. And the people that designed these 401k plans were all mutual fund companies, Wall Street brokers, insurance companies. They had a vested interest in making sure people relied not on their retirement plan that's funded for them by their employer, but by their own. And what ended up happening is the lack of financial education, it was devastating. People were like, I don't know what to put my money in. And hey, Joe, what are you putting your money in? I'll put my money there. And Joe's like, I don't know. I asked Sally and Sally told me to put it here. And that's how people invested in 401ks in the early days. And the other thing is that the fees were absolutely exorbitant. Nobody knew what the fees were because when you bought an investment back in the day, you would get in the mail a prospectus. And tell me whether or not you remember receiving prospectuses in the mail. They were literally printed on tissue paper. They were pamphlets printed on both sides with the smallest possible font, but it was your responsibility to read that prospectus and understand all the risks and the fees of where your money was going. And you didn't read it. If you did read it, I'm impressed. You wouldn't be here, first of all. You'd be a chartered financial analyst. Nobody read them. They didn't know what they were doing. And then if the market turned, which it did a number of times, they started saying, oh, no, I can't have any more risks. So they stopped putting money in, or even worse, took money out. So yeah, Algonquin, that's exactly right. It's that was one of the lies, I think. Not so much the lie, but one of the myths. Hey, Beverly, thank you very much. I appreciate you stopping in. We're having a robust conversation, and feel free to join in. The topic of the day, the question I just asked, we've had a couple of questions, is what are some of the myths or the lies that we bought into when we were planning on retiring all those many thousands of years ago? And Beverly brought up a very good one, which is she thought the employer would take care of the retirement plan. But the switch was the employee ended up on the hook. Didn't work out for a lot of people, and it's not their fault. It's not their fault. So let's see. I'm going to wrap it up in a second. Yeah. All right, Phil. What do you recommend I do? Get LASIK or maybe a bigger screen? Hey, you know what, Phil? You might be onto something. You might be. See, now then I have to look over here. It's not going to work. See? Well, what I don't have, because this is, maybe you guys who are a little bit more savvy in live streaming than I am. I'm using my laptop and my headphones, as you can tell, just as a test. If this thing flopped and you couldn't hear me, or the video was horrible, then that would give me an indication that I need to up my game if I wanted to keep doing lives. So if you have any recommendations, because Phil, you're other than your last one, I'm going to call you out on this one, Phil. Your last live, I couldn't stay with you because the video was just wanked out. It was almost like your Wi-Fi was just not connecting. Anyway, that's a fear that I have because I can't really tell. But if you've got suggestions on equipment like a webcam or a podcast mic or anything that you think would improve the quality of it, I am all ears. I don't have a big budget to spend because, quite frankly, I don't think you have to. I think most of us who are YouTubers and creating content don't need as much gear as all the experts say we should have. I'm still using an iPhone. I just upgraded my iPhone from an iPhone 10 to an iPhone 12. And I'm working on a HP laptop that I've had since 2019. So as long as the technology is working for me, I'm okay with not upgrading. But if you have tips that are relatively inexpensive to improve the quality, I am all ears. Let's see. Just keep the readers on. Yeah. Oh, you did replace the modem. Good job, Phil. Didn't mean to call you out like that, but you work so hard on your lives. And I'm sure somebody else told you that. But anyway, hey, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to call it a day, unless you've got something specific that you want to talk about. I consider this a success, not because I did anything right. It's because you all jumped in and really carried the day. And I so much appreciate that. And one of the things I'd suggest you do is, continue talking to each other. And what I would recommend, if you haven't already, check out each other's channels. I know a lot of, matter of fact, I know most of you folks through the different schools that I'm involved in. And I'm subscribers to your channels and watching your content because I want to learn from you. But I also think that your perspective, your experience, your lived experience is invaluable, because it helps me as a content creator realize that maybe I'm, not as whacked out as I think. Maybe Robert's more whacked out, or Phil's more whacked out. But I enjoy the content because it helps me understand what people are looking for. So with that being said, let's check. I have to put my glasses on one time, Phil. Don't be mad. Thank you guys so much. And I'm going to try to do this once a week. And I hope to see you again. Take care.